again. I've been doing PR for a lot of startups and tech and creative projects. Mainly, more than anything else, media relations, social media management, but you already had someone talking about it, content and events. So those are the four main things that I've been doing. So if we start, and I'll be focused on press. Do you know what PR is? What public relations means? Anyone? No one? Really? Jesus. Yes?
I know what PR is. Was that a question?
Yes, yes. More specifically.
What PR is?
Yes.
It's where you can interact not with your customers, but with people outside that can do some outreach to your company.
Okay. Okay. So public relations is a small part of the pie that marketing is. So usually PR is a big part of the marketing strategy. So when you talk or when you think about the way that you want to publicize your company and you think about marketing, advertising, and all of that, public relations is a small piece of everything that you can do. Some of the big companies, they stand their ground on public relations, on the importance that this kind of tool has. And more than anything else, people say and explain that it's a way of how we can perceive reality. So PR is an enabler for companies to sell what they are trying to sell in a more targeted way, telling a story about it. And one thing that is really, really important is that PR is not advertising, and there are a lot of people that don't understand the difference between the two of them. And advertising, you have to say 3 times at least that you are that you have a good product and that you are really true about what you're saying. While public relations gives the idea that if someone is publishing a news about that specific product or whatever, it's because it was already validated and it's true. Okay, so usually the big comparison is that advertising is trying to tell you something that you have to decide if you want to trust or believe in that or not. And PR already has a different approach, and it's perceived in a different way from people that are looking at it. So more than anything else, and I always have to explain this to 90% of my clients, is that PR is not advertising. Usually PR is perceived in a more correct and interesting way for people that are reading the news. And advertising is more expensive. Of course, that you are paying for those 20 seconds on TV, so you know that is going to happen. But that doesn't mean that people will see that and they will believe that it is actually the best brand for you to wash your clothes with. So that's the big difference. When going for PR strategy, you have to take some specific steps for you to organize the way you're going to work the strategy. And friendly advice, some ideas is that you have to make friends and not contacts. So last week I had a journalist from Lisbon that came to Porto, and he said, "Okay, let's have lunch." And I said, "Yes, I can take you for lunch. You want a friendzinho, of course. And what else? Do you want to talk to someone?" And he was already trying to talk with some entrepreneurs from Porto, and I managed that for them. So I'm not managing to have a contact with that journalist. I'm managing to have to be his friend in this case. So the idea is that if you have a close connection and relationship with journalists, in a more easy way, you're going to be able to pass them the information that you want to be published. So this is an important point, because when you're in university and you're learning about how to do PR and how to work with journalists and how to spread the word, no one tells you that you have to be friends with journalists and you have to create a network of people that might be a potential word of mouth player. So cut the blah blah blah, focus on value. The quality of a friend versus quality over quantity is also something very important. So it's preferable to have 5 journalists that are your friends or that you have a close connection with, than to sell an email to 20 people and you get 0 news published. So I think that this is important, and for someone that wants to start doing their own PR for their startup or to hire someone to do it, it's a specific thing that makes sense for you to have in mind when thinking about it. In Portugal, just some ideas. These are the 6 most important news media outlets that are writing about startups and technology. I'm gonna focus on that topic once all of us are entrepreneurs, right? Yes? You're so sad today. That's why, because it's dark inside. Energy. So, yes, something like that. So 6 news media outlets. Those are the journalists that are writing about technology, entrepreneurship, and startups for these ones. And these are the ones that you should know if you want to do something for your project or startup or anything that you want to put outside. There are a lot of other journalists. There are the journalists that is the number 2 that writes when the other one is on vacations, but these are the main ones, okay? Any question about it? Nothing? I'm gonna give you some time for pictures.
Which one is the most accessible and which one is the hardest?
That depends, but I can tell you that the best one writing about startups today is Ana Pimentel from Observador. So right now she's the one that is on top of everything. She's the one that knows everyone. She's the one that writes like the most interesting articles and best. So this is the one that I would say get to know her, try to talk to her. She's very, very nice, very accessible.
Okay. Yeah.
But just 1 in a million, right? So, okay, from here, what do you have to do before you start talking with press? Okay, so make sure you have a story to tell. This is very important, and I'm gonna give you some insights after this. But it's important for you to have a perfect angle and something to tell about your project or startup. I'm gonna think about the startup. So it's important that you have something to say about the startup. Do you have a new product? Do you have an investor? Do you have whatever? So it's important that you understand that you can't go to a journalist, send them a press that says, hello, we are this company, we have this amount of people, and we just entered the market in Portugal. That doesn't mean anything. So you have to have something to tell, something to share, something that is some impact, and that makes sense for that journalist to spend some of her time writing about it. After that, make sure you're familiar with the best way to tell it. So how are you going to approach them? Are you going to pitch, to send a message on Facebook, to write a press, You have to understand how that person works, what has she been doing and writing in the last couple of weeks, where is she heading, and the best way to approach her and to tell the story. Try to understand how you can tell your story. So if you are having an investment, try to understand who the investor is, other companies that they invested, the reach that you think that investment is going to have, what are you going to do with the money. So tell a story about the main story. And that's also the best way to get to journalists and to make them aware of what you're doing. And the third point is make sure you know who to tell it to. And that goes to the previous slide. So understand who are the journalists, who are the news media outlets that make sense for that. If you're talking about investment, probably go to Expresso or Negócios because they are more focused on money. But if you're talking about a big technology, so something really new and impactful, maybe to the tech news media outlets like PC Guia or Exame Informática, something like that. Obviously, you always have Dinheiro Vivo, Observador, Echo, and all the others that are talking in a more general way. But you can target the news media outlet and journalists considering the type of story that you want to tell. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay, thank you. Any questions? No questions, okay. So, what's the story? You can think all of this trend story, funding, new features, acquisitions, whatever, but you can also think outside the box. And when I say think outside the box, every startup has a different story to tell. Every startup has some kind of background that is different from all the neighbors that are in the same house. But if you think outside the box and you think about what's happening in the world and you think how your startup can impact something that is happening in our daily life, that's the best way to grab it and to try to tell something around it. And in a very easy way, and using a real example, when all the fires happened in the summer, there were a lot of startups that were like, yeah, we have some kind of technology that might make sense for this problem that we're having right now. And there were a lot of news about that with some companies that had some solutions for this problem. So try to understand what's happening and try to understand what do you have that might make sense and be interesting to tell to the press and to tell to the world about what you're doing. Okay. Anyone from a startup right now here that is looking for funding or that's... Yes? You're looking for it? Or do you have it already? Nothing? Do you want to try to understand how you can tell a story around your company considering that? Okay? Should it? I can't hear you.
I have to do that before I get funding.
Yes.
Otherwise I won't be getting any message.
Okay. But do you already have a strategy for that? Do you have something prepared for that moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Not confident, not share.
Okay. Sorry. So if you have any idea that you want to pass through us right now, feel free. Okay. We can give some feedback and inputs and insights on how you can do it best. Yes. Hello. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I need 12,000 euros to give them away for free to a person in Portugal to experiment basic income.
Okay. That's interesting. You can take that to the news.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you tried to do it?
I'm still preparing the PPL campaign.
Okay. So it will be a crowdfunding.
Yes.
PPL. Why not Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
Well, I think that a basic income could be perceived on an international level, but first of all, I think it's a very national question.
Okay.
Because it's like a cultural question as well, and I think people get closer to the topic when they address with their proper language, because it's touching many things we believe in, identity, and that's why I chose PPL, because it's the only crowdfunding platform that has Portuguese and English texts.
Okay. Well, for press, a specific note: Indiegogo or Kickstarter are better, just because they're international, and in Portugal, everything that comes from the outside is very well perceived.
Okay.
First things, and then they are more recognized. So if you say that you're in a campaign Kickstarter, it will be much more recognized from people than on PPL. So as a comparison, but this is just a small detail of everything that you can use as in your favor for the communication that you want to do. If you want to talk to me after about a specific strategy for press, we can also do that. But I was going to start with that. So think about how you can manage these little details that make all the difference when you're telling the story. Don't take it out from PPL. Sorry?
I have one press contact you don't have on your slides. I met her
really?
at Web Summit. She went away like along with the cameraman.
Okay.
And I was just talking to her and we exchanged numbers.
Nice.
And that's a good way actually when you are at conference, just talk to journalists.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are really also they want to have some input.
I'm gonna talk about that after. Stop giving my talk. Well, what's the story? Understand what you have to tell and how to tell it. Think outside the box. Create a story around the story, as I said. And from there, with some friendly advice, if you're handling multiple news media outlets, try to have multiple kind of stories to tell. Okay. So, as I was saying, if you're going to talk with Negócios and Design, probably and Expresso will something specific that might make sense for them. If you're talking for a tech company, for a tech news media outlet, use something more related with technology. So try to have a different kind of approach to all of them. Of course, that I know that if you're trying to communicate something specific, that will be your focus. But you can tell something in the beginning that's related to what they are writing, and then you develop to everything else. And then, as Don Draper, I'm completely addicted to Mad Men right now, so this is a problem. I decided that I wanted to have something from Mad Men in the presentation just because of that. But the thing is that If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. So you always have space to manage what you have to take to the outside. You always have space to manage the way you want to tell it. So if you don't think that you want to tell the story in a white way, try to tell it in a black way. So you can change the conversation because you are the one taking the information to the outside, okay? Write the pitch. So some topics on how you can write the pitch, and when I say pitch, is the approach that you want to do, but also, of course, the press release. Be brief, craft an eye-catching subject line. So I'm going to give you some examples after this, but if you have some specific taglines or words that are interesting and different from the normal type of words, it's always eye-catching. Don't copy-paste. Every journalist likes to feel special. So when you send an email with all the journalists in BCC, they know what's happening because they're not saying, hi, Hannah, or hi, Mariana, or whatever. So try to have, in the same context of having a deep and personal relation with the journalist, try to have that approach also when you're sending an email and trying to pitch them some kind of story. Explain why it's different, because if you're saying that you have a startup that does this and you have other 10 startups that do the same, you're not telling them anything that is new. So try to explain how you are different and how you can be an important thing for them to pay attention and to be aware. Present the perfect angle. So again, about the story. If you're telling them about investments, explain all the details about it and explain them that for El Salvador, for instance, they can tell a story about the first investment that you guys had and how you're managing and what you're going to do after and how the technology is going to evolve. And to others, you can be very, very focused on who was the investor, not inventor, but who was investing in you guys, what's their background, what they are doing, and how and why they invested in your startup. Avoid empty words that in Portuguese we call palha. So you need to put it there so to give some consistency to the text, but try to avoid something that is cliche, so more of the same, and be objective and to the point with the message that you're sharing. And if possible, give an offer, if you can, like access to some kind of beta testing, vouchers to use some kind of something in the future when you launch the product. So give them something that allows them to go and try the product, or at least have an idea that they can do that when the product is live. Okay? Any questions? Anything? Yes? No? Just trying to bring you guys to the conversation, so feel free to do it. Press release. So writing the pitch leads you to this. And these are some examples of projects that we are doing now. The press release has, the rules say, a structure that is a pyramid, but in an inverted way, okay? So this means that the most important information always comes in the top, and you come this side with less important information. This means that when a journalist is going to write the press, they're going to read the press, they're going to read like the first 2 lines, and then they go from there, and as the press goes like this, in the middle, they stop reading. So if all the information, the most important information is not concentrated in the beginning, probably they are not going to read the rest, and they're not going to read what really makes sense and is important for you guys to share. So always try to have the most important things in the top, and then palha comes after. About the subject, I wanted to point, but I don't think. Yes. And other things. Okay, about the subject, I had a good example here. That is, no, here. Plataforma digital rastreia pescado desde a primeira bilha até ao prato. Correct. So for all of you guys that understood this, this is a catchy thing to put on the subject. Okay, so for a journalist that wants to be like surprised in the beginning, that's an interesting information, and it gives you like, okay, I'm curious and I wanna read the rest and I wanna get to know more. So try to have all these bullet points and most important information in the beginning, and then go from there. The structure of the press is more or less what we have here on the left. Those two are just some examples of the first part, but this is the structure of the press. We try to have a differentiation between all the paragraph and the most important information on top, and then you go from there. Usually in this part you have some history or context of what is the startup and what they are doing and who they are. And this is basically how we do it in my agency, and it looks like it works. So I'm gonna keep doing it like this. So do you have any question? Any related to yes?
Regarding the title, do you think that a more clickbait approach on the title of the press release is interesting, or go with a more institutional and catchy phrase, but not too clickbait?
It depends. More than anything,
If the price is for Correio da Manhã, yeah, go for it.
Yes, it depends on, more than anything else, the relation that you have with the journalists. Because if you have a close relation with the journalists, in the subject you can put important information, I call you in a minute. So this is like the most important thing. If you don't have any relation, try to make something customized to the person that you're selling. So if you know there is someone that writes a lot about fintech and you're trying to get her to pay attention to that, you can put information about startup fintech, and then you have something about what you're trying to sell. And it depends, of course, to the news media outlet that you're selling it. If it's for Correio da Manhã, if you don't put anything, they will be curious and they will try to see what's happening. So it depends on all of that, but it's something that you get the sensibility to do it while you're doing it and for the people that you're selling them to. Okay.
When you send the pitch and they liked in the press release, do they have to use your text and your title, or can they change it?
Hopefully they're not using what. So you know that person is a good journalist if they don't use the press. Okay. So the press, the idea is for people to pay attention and get curious, and then they go and they do.
Attention, but then
they have to do their homework and then get to the news article, publish it. Okay. These are like the good journalists and the ones that you want to be published, like Ana Pimentel, for instance. And then you have the other ones that they do copy-paste and they publish it. But as I say, copy-paste is not ideal, but it's better than nothing. So let's aim for the good ones. But if they publish it this way, it's better than nothing. Hello.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking because one of the advices I got was to make a text that they can copy-paste. Because it's faster for them to copy paste it in, especially if it's like a short article on an online magazine. I
have mixed feelings about that. My press releases always go in PDF because I don't want them to copy paste.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that there are some journalists that prefer them to send on the body of the email or as a Word file. So it's better for them to copy paste and don't have to format everything after. It depends on the approach that you have. If you only want to have things published, anything is okay. But if you want to have something specific and you want to have a journalist that really did the homework and understood something and understood the way to tell the story differently from the way that you sent in the press, well, you have to put it in a different way. So to be honest, for us, we don't work like that. But I know there are a lot of people doing it, and it depends also if you are a professional doing this, so you know how you can do this, do you know the people that are going to publish, or it depends if you are the founder and only one person in the team doing everything, and you just want to put this outside, and you can do it in a different way. So I understand your question, and I think that is more than anything else a decision that you want to do and you have to do regarding, do I want to have some awesome news about what I'm doing, or I just want to have this outside and someone will read it. Of course, that the idea is always to have the best, but that will mean that probably the small news media outlets are not going to publish it because they don't have a team to go and do the homework, and they don't want to to just copy paste what you have there. So it's a matter of a decision that you have to do regarding the way you want to be published.
Because I'm thinking if you do write a nice press release that could be copy pasted, but ideally would not be,
Yeah.
then you would have two options. That either they come to you and they make a nice interview with you because maybe it's well written and they get released. And then also you would have those that are maybe not a really target group, but they still would publish it because it's well written.
Let's aim for that.
No, I was just curious because that's
There are other approaches that you can do. You can do an approach that is you call to the journalists. You tell them about all of that. A small note. Most of the journalists don't like to be called to, because they will have to pick up the phone and hear, and even if they don't want to hear about what you're saying, they were not going to be impolite. So ideally send an email, and if they are interested, they are going to reply. If they are with a lot of work, they are going to publish and not tell you. So you have all of this happening. But going back, you can call them, explain what you're doing, and then send a document with information that doesn't need to be a press release, can be a presentation or a pitch deck to the journalists to get to know what you're selling. You can send an email with a small introduction, just saying, I am X, the founder of X, and I would really love for you to pay attention to the information that I want to share. We are just launching our new product. And then you have the press on the body of the email. So you can make different approaches. Hope this helps.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything? No. Okay. So from the press release to talking to journalists, because you can't only send the email and just sit and wait to what's going to happen next. You need to do some work after that, and usually the work is follow-up. So don't be afraid to ask questions, call them, explain what's happening, what you're doing, what you're trying to get from them. Ask questions about, do you want exclusivity? Do we want to be the only one publishing about this right now, and then next week I can send this to other journalists? There are always a million ways of managing this with the press. It depends on what you're looking for and what kind of feedback you want to get from them. You can also try to be the one saying, these are the rules from my side, and then you can play with them if they are interested or not. But it's a little bit, a mix. You can do a lot of things with that. Timing is everything. Be careful, because in the summer last year with the fires, we had a lot of things happening with zero media coverage. Zero. I'm doing the Portuñol that I was telling you about. Media coverage, because of everyone was in the fires. Even the journalists writing about technology and startups, they were working and writing about fires. So timing is everything. If you want to launch a press release next week, and in the day before you launch the press, you know that a bridge went down and people died, hold on that, and probably wait another week for you to have as much coverage as possible. And be available, but this is the obvious. If you are really interested in that journalist publishing about your story, of course you're going to be available to explain and give all the details that you might be able to give. Yes? Okay.
I have a question. In terms of timing, do you think in the beginning of the week works better than the end of the week, or you think one day is
it
Tuesday
depends.
is the day, or?
Well, definitely Friday is not the day. Weekend is not the day, because either you are going to be working probably. So Monday depends. What happens on Monday is that we have a lot of journalists coming back to work because they were not working during the weekend, but they will also will have the inbox full with a lot of stuff that they got from Friday and Monday morning. So Monday is better than Friday, of course, but it's like a faca de dois gumes, as we say it. Okay, so it can go for the best or for the worst. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are definitely the spot on days for this approach. Anything else? Nope. Okay. After the pitch, follow up. You can follow up in a few days, or in 2 weeks, or in 1 month. It depends on the kind of relation that you have with the journalist, and it depends on the kind of urgency that you have with the subject. So I just launched the applications for a big hackathon that is going to happen in Porto in May. I launched the press last week, and I'm only going to make the follow-ups probably tomorrow or Thursday. So it's important for me for the news to be out there, but it's not that urgent for me to make the follow-up in the day after I sent the press release. So you have to have the sensibility to understand when it makes sense for you guys to make the follow-up, and then feel free to contact the journalist, and then get ready to be disappointed. And this is not a bad thing. One thing that you need to know is that a lot of times journalists get the email or the press, they say, oh, this is really, really interesting, I'm really curious about this, but this is not urgent, and I know that I'm going to have a special on the newspaper in 2 weeks from now about this topic. And they're not going to tell you anything, and they will have that in the pipeline, and probably it's going to be a news in 1 month when you're not already thinking about that, and you are surprised with a tag on Facebook with the name of your company, and you go and see that Observador of Newview posted something about it. So this is pretty normal. Sometimes I do some projects with clients that's like 3 or 4 months after the project is like over. They pay me everything. I said bye-bye, see you later. And then I got an email from a journalist saying, hey, remember this? I'm really, really curious, and I wanted to make an interview on Wednesday. So it happens a lot of times. A lot of people feel like disappointed, but then they feel like really, really happy because these journalists come back after a couple of months and write about it. Not everyone works the same way, not everything happens the same way, but it's something that happens a lot. So,
may I share 1 or 2 examples of myself?
Of course.
So I had my own startup, which was Music Verb, and I also work with InfraSpeak and Beatmaker, and we have a lot of different examples in these 3 different projects. And I think it's, as you were telling about, it's always about timing and the story. So on InfraSpeak, we try to build stories all the time to get press, because it's like making it rain. We have a lot of new leads when we are in the press. Mm-hmm. And there's an expression in Portuguese when in the end of the championship, the football championship, we have this expression which is luta pela manutenção. So you are fighting not to be relegated. So we built a campaign which is luta pela manutenção, because InfraSpeak is a maintenance management software. So they are fighting for manutenção, the same way the technicians fight to maintain things. So we were everywhere, because we were giving 1 year subscription of the software for the team who can stay in the first league. Okay, so we built the momentum to be on the sports newspapers and everywhere because of that, because we have done our own story. On the other hand, Music Verb, which was like one of the probably the most successful startup in Portugal in terms of music, mm-hmm. We were acquired by an international group which is the market leader in Europe. We had like the perfect press release. I was making all the contacts, and then the guitar player of the biggest rock band in Portugal died. And that's it. No story about it. Not a single article about our acquisition on music media.
That happens a lot. Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday or Friday. But Zé Pedro died. Yeah, so and I was sending. 1 minute I was talking with Lia Pereira, which is one of the probably well-known Portuguese writers about music in Blitz magazine. And then we were talking. I uploaded the press release on Facebook for her. And then she said, Zé Pedro died. shut up. Because I just got to know that Zephyr died. So I can't talk about music for anymore.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
get ready to be disappointed, right? Sorry.
Yeah, but I started this relation because you were talking about building, making friends. I started this relation with some of the journalists because I go to their websites and I search for music for or other music startups, and there are no articles about these startups on music blogs or music press. And I just typed a really short message, which was like something like, I just searched for the 3 biggest music startups in Europe in your blog or in your website, and I didn't find one single article about it. I can help you with that. I can introduce you to my friends in other music startups, and you can make the thing happen because I will help you make the story. And I was the guy helping the journalists making the story about the music startups, and that's how Music Verb got a lot of press on the international media because I was helping journalists to make their job.
Yeah. So that's a good way to put it. So giving a personal experience with Fez Agency, we launched a year and a half ago the Portuguese Women in Tech community. And we launched the community because it's something that is special for me and that it's really, really important for me to unblock and to pull and motivate more women to come to the technology. But it was also a nice way for us to make some PR for the agency, because it's not an official community from the PR agency, but it's something that is the same team that is doing. And obviously when press talks about Portuguese Women in Tech, they are obviously talking about me and Fez Agency. So this is also another way to create some story around what you're doing, and to make some direct connections with journalists that are writing about a completely different topic, but from one moment to the other, they get to know what Fez Agency is and what we are doing and what are the clients that we are working with. So there are a lot of things that, when I say think outside the box, think outside the box. You can do a lot of stuff that you don't look at it on the first moment as a way to publicize yourself, but then you understand that it can work. Be direct connection to journalists, help them get to where they want to go, and help them get to people that they want to talk with. Create stories around what you're doing. There are a lot of things that you guys can do. And I was going to tell other forms of PR, and it goes a little bit like that. So you can go to networking events and you are making some PR for yourself, or you can organize your own events and you're making some PR for yourself. You can work on placements, you can feature stories, expert mentions, helpful content. So you have a lot of things that you can do that you don't perceive as PR, but it's a small part of PR inside the big cheese that is marketing and all the tools to communicate your startups and projects. So think creatively and make it happen. You just have to try it. So if you try it, you don't know what can happen, and most of the times it happens something good. Any ideas? Any questions? Anything? Yes? No? Yes? Yeah?
What about the summer period? Like, when is the last moment to actually think about having something on the media, or is there actually some coverage as well during the summer months?
From the middle of July till beginning of September, or to the middle of September, you can forget it. Of course, you can make some things and some news that happen, but everybody is going to be very curious about where the politicians are bidding. What are the new super colors for your swimsuit or whatever? In the beginning of September, everything is happening regarding schools and going back to schools. So everything is being written about it. Of course, you can make something happen, but inside these 2 months is harsher than it is normally. If you have some kind of product that might be something interesting to sell during the Christmas time, you can start working in November for all the news and the Christmas lists that you're going to see in the lifestyle magazines. So this is also important and interesting. So you can look at the bigger picture of the year and understand the biggest and most important moments of the year and try to understand where can I put my product or my startup or whatever in the press because of all these moments. Christmas, Easter, summer, back to school, whatever. So you have a lot of possible momentums in the yearly calendar that might be interesting for you guys to put something outside. Yes?
Strategic question.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of support here in Porto, but when I talked to some people, said, yeah, but say that your project started in Lisbon, because okay, I'm not going to this game, just I was thinking for me it's okay that if the heart of the project is Porto, it will be Porto, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the relation with media? Because as what I said, really also it might be more easy, not more easy, but people or there might be more to have something great important to write about. Also, that was actually for me it's very authentic. If it starts here, well, let's print it Porto.
Regarding Portuguese press, what's happening is that Lisbon is the capital. 90% of journalists that write about what we want are in Lisbon, and obviously they will be more permeáveis, so it will be easier for them to write about something that is happening in the next door to them. In any case, I don't look for it as a problem, because I've been working with startups that are based in Caldas da Rainha, that 90% of people don't know to look at the map and understand where they are, and they got a lot of features, and they had some nice news articles. So I don't think it's an issue. So if the project and the story it's something interesting and makes sense, it will be published no matter what. When talking about Portugal to the world, usually a lot of companies say we are from Portugal. They decide not to be specific about Porto or Lisbon or whatever, because the country is so small that if you say that you're from Portugal, it's more than enough to put you on the map. But inside the country, I think it's pretty okay with being from Porto or Lisbon or whatever. And to be honest, I'm super regionalist, so I will always say you are from Porto no matter what. But I don't think it's an issue to decide between the two of them. Okay. Should you hire a PR agency? So, João Pedro Pereira is a journalist from Public that writes about startups and entrepreneurship and everything else. And 1 year or 2 years ago, I saw this on LinkedIn and I said, holy, I'm going to make a print out of this because this will be very interesting for me to use in the future. And what it says over there, that doesn't mean that you have to hire a PR agency. That means that at least do your homework before start the contact with journalists, okay? And on the other hand, if you're not going to hire a PR agency but you have some budget, at least try to hire someone for the team to do that, even if it's someone as a freelancer or a part-time. But usually these kind of people already have the contact that might be interesting for your projects to be published. And then, well, do your homework and prepare yourself, because what it says over there is the basics. So try to be careful with what you're telling and the way you're telling. But if you have some homework did about this, you can always manage. Anything about this? No? Okay. Friendly advice. The same that I did, that I said in the beginning and that I said during the presentation. Make relationships. So try to connect with people, no matter who it is. Somewhere along the way, probably is going to be someone that you understand that it makes complete sense for you to know. It's, as we say, for a lot of things, try to bring as many people as possible for your network, because there are always someone that knows someone that takes you to somewhere. So this is one of the most important things that I've been learning, and that I think it's really, really important for all of you and for all of us. Okay, yeah, we talked about, and you guys had a lot of questions, but any question about everything that was said here, or any question about anything else that I didn't cover. Yes, sorry.
Could you just go back to the previous slide
No.
real quick? Thank you.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? No? Nothing? Okay. I can keep going back to other slides if you want.
Can you share some example about the story that was nothing special and you could make a PR strategy for them and it turned big? Like, we gave an example about InfraSpeak,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of tricks.
Yeah. I can tell you a story of something real with a client that I had that actually is a startup that then was bought. And they are like some kind of far-fetched but with clothes for kids. And I was working with them and we were making a PR strategy for them about they buying a smaller company than them and opening a different industry for them. And we were talking about that and preparing the communication for the PR. And we understood, okay, this is interesting, but I don't think we'll have the impact that the client has. So we have to turn this around and try to understand how we can do something different or bigger or tell the story in a different way. Because just say we're going to buy a smaller company than us, not a bigger company than us, is not going to pull the trigger. And we brainstorm inside the team and try to understand what could be interesting. And like a couple of weeks after that, they called me and they said, well, something happened. Someone bought us. And I was like, what the fuck? I was going to say that you guys bought someone and then someone bought us. So the story changed completely. And then the focus was on how can a startup that has everything to be in the market and start growing from there. Someone understood that they were really important for them and bought them. So how can we put this in another way? And it had everything to go wrong, and then it was super interesting, and everybody was talking about that. And this happened like a couple of years ago. So this is one of the examples. There are other situations like a startup here in Portugal that had a super nice technology in the music industry that you might know, Imaginando from Braga. And they were doing a lot of things, and we were going to do some PR for them about their technology specifically. But that was super interesting for the tech press and not for the press in general. And then BMW hired them to make a performance in Casa da Música in the presentation of the new BMW. And that was a completely different trigger. So we got to say this, they have an awesome technology, and even BMW got to notice that and hire them for a huge project. So some stories around that. And I have a lot of them, but most of the time I don't remember. So we can talk a little bit after, and probably I'm going to remember a couple of more other stories. Lou, anything else? If not, I think I'm done. So if you want to contact me or get to know a little bit more of what we are doing as agency, feel free. These are my direct contacts. Thank you.
Thank you.